Greetings from Indus Valley Public School, Raj. Welcome to e-learning class of English class 9, where we was doing a lesson from Moments book, and the name of the lesson was The Beggar, written by Anton Chekhov. This is part 2 of that lesson, and in this lesson we have seen three characters: the beggar, Sergey, and Olga. Sergey was an advocate, Olga was the maid servant of Sergey. Children, in the first part of the video we had seen that the story begins with a beggar's plea to an advocate, Sergey. The beggar says that he has not eaten in 3 days. For 8 years he was a village school teacher and fell victim to a conspiracy that cost him his reputation and his job. For a year he has had no employment. Sergey looks at the beggar's overcoat and face. He thinks he has seen him elsewhere. The beggar further explains that he has been offered a position in province of Kaluga, but to take it up he needs money. Sergey observed the beggar's overshoe. One is higher than the other. He suddenly remembers where he had seen the beggar before. He tells the beggar that 2 days ago he had met him in Sarvoda street, and later he claimed that he had been a student who had been expelled. The beggar is surprised and claims that he has papers to prove that he was a village school teacher. Sergey turns away from him disgusted. Sergey says that for this fraud he will call the police. At this, the beggar confesses that he used to be a part of Russian choir and had been expelled for drunkenness. He says he has no choice but to tell lie, as no one will help him if he tells them the truth. Sergey tells him to work. He asks the beggar if he would like to chop wood for him. The beggar accepts. Sergey takes the beggar home and tells his cook Olga to take him to the woodshed. So this is what there in the part 1. Now coming towards the part 2 explanation. The scarecrow of a beggar shrugged his shoulder as if in perplexity and went irresolutely after the cook. So a scarecrow, it's a statue that is made up of wood in between the field, and it is covered with dress. So it's look like a human being. It is made there because no animal or no bird can enter, and as they will feel somebody standing between the field. So this beggar was resembling like a scarecrow, and the way he was walking मीन्स ही वॉज श्रगिंग हिज शोल्डर. उस तरह से उसका जो कोट था, बैठा हुआ था, और मैं चल रहा था, तो इसे दिख रहा था कि वो एक स्केयर क्रो की तरह है. And it was obvious from his gait that he had not consented to go and chop wood because he was hungry and wanted work, but simply from pride and shame, and because he had been trapped by his own words. So now he followed the cook in a very uninterested way, and his uninterest or hesitant was resembling the way he was walking, and it is because he was hungry and he did not although he wanted to work, मतलब उसे काम तो करना था because he was trapped in his word, but he was not feeling energetic to do. What kind of trap? He said Sergey to work, so this was that he already told Sergey that he want to work, so he has to work. So he had developed that desire to work, but he did not feel energetic. It was obvious too that his strength had been undermined by vodka, and that he was unhealthy and did not feel the slightest inclination for toil. So children, inclination means hota hai interest, and toil means hota hai hard work. So as he did not feel strong enough because he was under the influence of alcohol and was not fit to do any kind of laborious work. Sergey hurried into the dining room. From its window one could see the woodshed and everything that went on the yard. So what happened? Sergey, the advocate, went to the dining room to look outside the window. So he could see the woodshed and the yard from that particular place. Standing at the window, Sergey saw the cook and the beggar come out into the yard by the back door and make their way across dirty snow to the shed. So he saw, as he was standing at the window, so he just saw cook and beggar in the yard. They were coming from the back door. They walked to the shed, and the street was covered with snow. Olga glared wrathfully at her companion, showed him aside with her elbow, unlocked the shed, and angrily banged the door. So what happened? Olga, the cook, stared at the beggar in a very angry way. She pushed him with her elbow and shut the door hardly. Next, he saw the pseudo teacher seat himself on a log and become lost in thought, and his red cheek resting on his feet. So now this beggar, he was sitting, who had lied that he had been a teacher. So he was sitting on a log of wood, and he sat with his cheek resting on his fist. Fist means मुट्ठी पे अपना चेहरा रख के बैठ गया. The woman flung down an axe at his feet, spat angrily, and judging from the expression of her lips, began to scold him. So Olga, the maid, she threw the axe towards him and scolded him. The beggar irresolutely pulled a billet of wood towards him, set it up between his feet, and tapped it feebly with the axe. So now what happened? The beggar, he pulled the piece of wood towards him, placed it between his feet, and hit it weakly with an axe. The billet wavered and fell down. So the log of wood shook and it fell. The beggar again pulled it to him, blew on his freezing hand, and tapped it with his axe cautiously, as if afraid of hitting his overshoe or of cutting off his finger. The stick of wood again fell to the ground. So again this fellow, the beggar, pulled it up, tried to warm up his hand by blowing into, मतलब उसे रगड़ के फूक फूक के गरम किया हाथ को, and again tapped the wood with the axe, और फिर again वो जो लॉक था वुड का उसको एक्स से फिर चॉप करना शुरू कर दिया. Now this time he is very careful so that he did not hit his shoes or he did not cut his finger. The wood fell once again, even though wood जो थी वो फिर से गिर गई. Sergei's anger had vanished, and he now began to feel a little sorry and ashamed of himself of having set a spoiled, drunken, perhaps sick man to work for a menial labor in the cold. So now what happened? This time Sergei's anger was vanished. He was no longer angry at the beggar, even though he felt sorry and ashamed of himself to put the poor man at hard work in such a cold weather, despite the fact that he was not fit enough to do. So this everything was felt by Sergei. An hour later, Olga came in and announced that the wood had been all chopped. So after an hour, Olga, the maid servant of Sergei, went to Sergei and told him that all the pieces of wood had been chopped. Good. Give him half a ruble, said Sergei. So now Sergei, he was glad to see that beggar had done the work. So he asked Olga to pay him a half a ruble. Then if he wants, he can come back and cut wood on first day of each month. We can always find work for him. So now what, as he was very happy, so he also said Olga that she can convey the message that if he wants to work, then he can come on first day of every month, and they will also find some other work along with chopping of wood. On the first of the month, the waif made his appearance and again earned half a ruble, although he could barely stand on his feet. So now what happened? On every first of every month, this waif means a homeless person, this beggar, he used to come there and he got half a ruble, as he was heavily drunk, so he could not stand on his feet. He was feeling feeble. From that day on, he often appeared in yard, and every time work was found for him. So now, from that particular day, he used to visit Sergei's house every time. He went there for work often. Then he had different kind of works. What kind of work he used to do? Now he would shovel snow. Now put the wood shed in order. Now beat the dust out of rugs and mattresses. So he used to remove the snow. He used to put all the woods in a shed in order, and to remove the dust from the mattresses. जो धूल होती थी mattresses में, वो सारी चीज़ों को हटाना था. So now what happened? After doing such tasks, every time he received from 20 to 40 kopecks, and once even a pair of trousers was sent to him out. So मतलब उसको 20 to 40 kopecks मिल जाता था, and once he got a pair of trousers, उसको वहाँ से ट्राउज़र भी मिला for doing the work. When Sergei moved into another house, he hired him to help in packing and hauling of the furniture. So now Sergei shifted to another house, so he had taken help from the beggar. He has hired the beggar to help in to move the articles and stuffs and like furniture and all to the new house. This time Wave was sober, gloomy and silent. So now the man was not under the influence of alcohol. He did not have alcohol. He was sad and he remained quiet. He hardly touched the furniture and walked behind the wagons, hanging his head, not even making a pretense of appearing busy. So what happened? He hardly took part in moving the furniture. He just simply walked behind the vans with his head hanging low and did not pretend to be busy. मतलब उसने कुछ भी show off नहीं किया, simply walk कर रहा था. ठीक है? Then he only shivered in the coat and became embarrassed when the carters jeered at him for his idleness, his feebleness, and his tattered fancy overcoat. After the moving was over, Sergei sent for him. So now what happened? So he was simply walking behind the vans with his head hanging down, and he was shivering due to cold weather and seemed embarrassed. Was embarrassing feel कर रहा था when other workers made fun of him being idle, weak, and they also laughed at his torn overcoat. So when the work was completed, when the work of shifting was over, Sergei, the advocate, called the beggar. Well, I'm happy with that. My words have taken effect, he said, handing him a ruble. So now what happened? Sergei said that he was very happy. He is glad to see that see the changes in the beggar due to his scolding, and he handed over him a ruble for his work. Then he is saying that we whatever you have done, so you have this money, ruble. I say you are sober and have no objection to work. What is your name? So now he is asking his name, and he had left drinking and willing to work. So Sergei observed that this fellow, he had stopped his drinking habit, and what happened, he is also showing his will of work. So he immediately asked the name of the beggar. So beggar replied, Chekhov. So immediately beggar told his name, Chekhov. Children, thank you for watching the video. Here I am ending my video, second part. Wait for the third part where we will complete the lesson. Thank you so much for watching the video.